then a property dispute. I backed up the photos to my cloud, my fingers trembling but deliberate. Each click a step toward justice. The next morning I woke to soft sniffling in the kitchen, delicate, almost theatrical. Madison stood by the sink in her robe, clutching a crumpled tissue, staring out the window at the backyard's blooming azaleas. She turned as I entered, wiping her eyes with the edge of her palm, forcing a brave smile. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling just enough. "Sometimes it hits me all over again." Then her hand drifted to her belly, a subtle but unmistakable gesture. I froze, my mind racing. "I didn't want to say anything until I was sure," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine. "I'm pregnant, Ellen." For 5 seconds I couldn't speak, couldn't move. It didn't add up. Not with her behavior, not with the timeline, not with the cold calculation I'd seen. "How far along?" I asked, my voice calm but probing. 8, maybe 9 weeks, she said quickly, too quickly. My mind clicked. Erin had been dead for 10 weeks. I stared, keeping my face neutral, as she placed a sonogram photo on the table, her fingers lingering on it like a prop. I picked it up, turning it slowly, noting her name, the clinic, the date. 4 weeks ago, not 10. The truth hit like a cold wave. The pregnancy wasn't Erin's. It was a play for control, a card to wield in court or public opinion. "I used a donor," she said, her voice steady, rehearsed. "Erin and I discussed it, just in case. He wanted me to have a piece of him. I knew it was a lie. Erin would have told me something that monumental, would have shared it during one of our late-night talks." I handed the photo back, my expression blank, refusing to give her the reaction she wanted. "I hope you understand why I need stability now," she said, her voice softening. "For the baby's sake." I nodded slowly, letting her think I was folding. That changes things. Her face softened, a flicker of triumph in her eyes, believing her performance had worked. The second she left the room, I pulled up the photo of her folder, matching the sonogram date to the file date. 4 days apart, both from the same week. Planted evidence, carefully orchestrated. I forwarded everything to Holt with a short message. "We need to talk." He called within an hour, his voice calm but firm. "This helps us," he said. "If she's claiming dependency or emotional hardship, we can demand medical records and timeline consistency." I asked, "What if she faked the entire thing?" He replied, "That's fraud. Keep documenting calmly, and we'll win before it ever reaches trial." "She's trying to bait me into reacting," I said. "Then don't," he advised. "Stay steady." And I did. I cleaned the bathroom, folded laundry, smiled when she made pointed comments like, "This baby's going to need so much space," or "It's hard raising a child in a hostile environment." Each time she watched for a crack, a sign I'd snap, but I gave her nothing. My face a mask of calm, my heart a fortress. That Friday, an envelope slid under my door, marked urgent 48 hours notice. Inside was a typed document, not court-filed, claiming I had 48 hours to vacate due to emotional instability and personal threats. I sat on my bed staring at it, my heart pounding not from fear, but from the sheer sloppiness of her lie. The final line made my skin crawl. "Failure to vacate will result in law enforcement involvement and potential elder neglect claims." She was painting me as a dangerous old woman, banking on panic to drive me out before I could fight back. I folded the document slowly, added it to my growing file of her missteps, and drove to Holt's office without hesitation. This wasn't just about defending my right to the house anymore. It was about dismantling the fantasy world she was trying to build. Holt scanned the notice, his chuckle one of disbelief, not amusement. "She's threatening elder neglect while harassing you emotionally and financially?" His voice was steady, but his eyes gleamed with strategy. I told him everything. The fake pregnancy, the sonogram's false date, the forged will, the phone calls I'd overheard at night, the conversations I'd baited her into without raising my voice. "This is pre-fraud litigation territory," he said, leaning forward. "If she's altered financial documents or used your identity, we're looking at criminal charges." "What's the fastest way to prove it?" I asked, my voice calm but urgent. "A discovery subpoena," he said. "Her emails, text logs, medical submissions, banking records. I asked if a judge would grant it. With the forged eviction notice, the pregnancy inconsistencies, and the deed misrepresentation, all documented. We don't just have a case, we have leverage, he said, his pen tapping the desk with purpose. I drove home, a quiet resolve settling in my chest. Not grief or fear, but a focused determination, like a blade honed sharp. Madison was in the kitchen on a video call, her headset in, laughing about a real estate opportunity. Her voice was light, confident. "Yeah, I'll have access to the place within 2 weeks, tops," she said, her words a punch to my gut. I stepped into view, pulling a water bottle from the fridge, staring until she noticed me. Her smile faltered, and she ended the call abruptly. "Do you need something?" she asked, her tone sharp, her eyes narrowing. I smiled, deliberate and calm. "Just a heads up, if another envelope comes to my door, make sure it's court-stamped. Anything less goes straight to my attorney." She blinked, startled, her composure cracking. "Are you threatening me now?" I replied, my voice steady. "You started the paperwork war, Madison. I'm just keeping mine legal." I walked out before she could respond, leaving her with the weight of my words. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Aaron's death. I opened his old email account, one he'd shared with me years ago when I helped him job hunt. The password, his favorite song lyric, plus his service number, still worked, a small miracle. Most of the inbox was mundane. Job applications, utility bills, subscription renewals. But a flagged folder labeled Estate caught my eye. Inside was a PDF, Draft Will, February 2023. I opened it and my breath stopped. The signature at the bottom wasn't Aaron's. The loops and angles all wrong. The notary seal was cropped, reused, a clumsy forgery. The document named Madison as sole heir and property owner, with no mention of me, dated just a week before his death. The metadata showed it came from her computer, not a legal firm, not Aaron's account, just Madison K. Drafts. My hands shook as I sent the file to Holt with a note. She forged his will. I pressed send without flinching, the action a quiet declaration of war. The next morning, Holt called before I'd finished my toast, his voice calm but resolute. "We're filing today." He outlined the plan, a motion to freeze the property title, a court review of the will, a fraud alert through the probate court, and a protective notice on the house to block any unauthorized sale or refinance attempt. "You don't have to serve her," he said. "The court will." I nodded, though he couldn't see me, a sense of relief washing over me. Not victory, but the knowledge that someone else would speak for me now, that I didn't have to keep pretending I was powerless in the house I'd helped pay for. Madison must have sensed the shift. She turned oddly friendly, offering to make lunch, asking if I wanted to shop for baby things with her, her voice syrupy, her eyes searching for weakness. I declined, my tone polite but firm. She tilted her head, her smile tight. "Are we good?" I met her gaze, my own smile faint but unyielding. "We'll see." That afternoon, a process server called, his voice clipped. "We'll be delivering papers later today. Do not engage." I agreed, my heart steady, and sat on the couch with the blinds open, waiting. Around 5 p.m., Madison pulled into the driveway in her new SUV, 2 shopping bags in hand, her face relaxed, unaware. A man in a gray jacket emerged from a parked car, approached the porch, and said her full name with a practiced tone. She paused, confused. "Yes?" He handed her a thick envelope. "You've been served. Probate fraud and property injunction." She froze, lips parting, her bag slipping slightly in her grip. "What the hell is this?" she asked, her voice rising. "You'll need to read it," he said, turning and walking away without another word. From the living room window, I watched her stare at the envelope seal, her eyes flicking toward the house, toward me. I didn't move, didn't blink, just sat still, letting her see me. She stormed inside, slammed the envelope on the dining table, and tore it open, scanning the pages with growing panic. "No, no, no," she whispered, then louder. "She's lying. This is all lies." She turned to me, her face flushed. "What did you tell them?" I stood, my voice calm, deliberate. "I didn't tell them anything. The documents did." She threw the envelope to the floor, papers scattering, and stormed into the kitchen, muttering, "I'll fix this. This isn't happening." That night she didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't leave her room, the house heavy with her silence. The next morning I found her pacing the front yard, phone to her ear, her voice a low hiss. "Just get me a lawyer who can bury this. I don't care what it costs. She's just an old woman." I stood on the porch, arms crossed, letting her know I heard every word. She froze, her eyes meeting mine, then turned away, her voice dropping lower. 2 days later, we were in court for a preliminary hearing on the will's validity and deed ownership. Madison walked in, her cream blazer pristine, clutching her fake ultrasound photo like a prop, her face a mask of grieving widowhood. Her attorney began with a soft-voiced performance about her loss, her need for stability, her role as a soon-to-be mother. Holt shut it down with cold precision, presenting evidence like a surgeon's scalpel. Side-by-side comparisons of Erin's real signature and her forgery, metadata from her laptop proving she'd edited the will, refinance records excluding her entirely, and the deed, my name, Erin's, legally recorded, untouched by her schemes. The judge leaned forward, reviewing the file, his glasses glinting under the courtroom lights. "Counselor, this is extremely clear," he said, his voice firm. Madison's shoulders sank, her mouth twitching like she wanted to scream but couldn't. The judge continued. "Temporary ownership freeze lifted. Ms. Ellen retains legal co-ownership. All eviction claims are void. The will is subject to fraud investigation." Madison's lawyer whispered something urgently, and she glared at him, her composure cracking, betrayal flashing in her eyes. I stood steady, silent, strong, not triumphant, but grounded in the truth finally spoken aloud. As we left the courtroom, Holt turned to me, his voice low. "Now we wait to see if she pushes back or packs her bags." In the car, I checked my phone. An email from the court system confirmed my full ownership recognition status. I smiled, not out of spite but relief, the weight of months lifting slightly. The law knew what she was, and that was enough for now. The house was too quiet the next morning, not peaceful but charged, like the silence before a storm. Madison sat at the dining table, her coffee untouched, a legal pad in front of her filled with names and phone numbers, her pen tapping restlessly. She didn't look up when I entered, just said, "You think you've won?" I poured my own coffee, letting the silence stretch, the gurgle of the machine, the only sound. She pressed, her voice sharper. "You think just because a judge believed your little story, it's over?" I turned, meeting her gaze. "It wasn't a story, Madison. It was the law." She stood so fast the chair screeched against the tile, her eyes blazing. "You don't get to steal everything from me." I held her stare, unflinching. "You tried to erase me from a house I helped build, from a life I was always part of, with a fake will and a fake pregnancy." Her face froze, her mouth opening, then closing as she scrambled for a response. "I was grieving," she tried, but the words fell flat, her act crumbling. "Pack your things," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm giving you the respect you never gave me. I'm not calling the sheriff yet." She opened her mouth, then shut it, grabbed her phone, and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The house settled into a new kind of quiet, not just on the surface but deep within, like the first breath after months underwater. I went to Erin's room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of his bed, the mattress dipping under my weight. The walls he'd painted himself, a soft blue he'd chosen for its calm, were bare now, the bookshelf empty. "We're okay now, baby," I whispered, my voice catching. "I promise." I opened his top drawer, one I hadn't touched since the funeral, and found a folded sheet of paper, handwritten unsigned in his familiar scrawl, dated 3 weeks before his death. "If anything happens to me," it began, "I need you to know I'm sorry." My chest locked up as I read, line after line of guilt, frustration, regret. He wrote of how Madison had isolated him, how he knew she was manipulative but felt trapped, how he couldn't tell me things anymore because she made him feel like he had to choose sides. At the bottom he wrote, "Don't let her take everything. This house was always ours, not hers. Do what you have to, Mom. My hands shook, not from grief, but from clarity, from the weight of his words giving me the final piece I needed. I scanned the letter, locked it in my drawer next to the deed, and felt a peace settle over me, a certainty that he'd been with me all along, even in death. Madison returned at sunset, her face hard, her eyes burning with defiance. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice low. "I'll go to the press. Tell them you bullied a grieving widow." I looked at her, calm, unshaken. "Then I'll show them the ultrasound dates, the will metadata, and the letter Aaron left me." Her face went pale, her eyes widening. "You're bluffing," she whispered. "Try me," I said, my voice steady. She turned, slamming her bedroom door so hard a frame fell off the hallway wall. I picked it up, reset it with care, and made dinner, the act grounding me. I texted Holt. "Found a personal letter, strengthens motive, I'll forward." He replied within seconds, "Send it, it's bulletproof." That night I slept with the window open, no door wedge, no backup key under the pillow, just the cool spring air and silence, pure and untainted. By Sunday morning, the hall outside Madison's room was lined with cardboard boxes, some barely taped, packed in haste, their contents spilling out, clothes, books, her carefully curated life unraveling. She didn't speak, just rummaged through drawers like she was searching for something she'd never find. Finally, she turned to me in the kitchen, her voice flat, defeated. "I'll be out by Friday." I nodded, no smile, no sarcasm, just calm acknowledgement. "You can have your house back," she added, her words a last attempt at control. I looked at her, my voice quiet but firm. "It was never yours to give." The words hit harder than any shout, her face freezing, her defiance crumbling. She looked away, unable to respond, her hands trembling slightly as she turned back to her boxes. Her friends came later, their voices loud in the hallway, lifting boxes, whispering about my insanity and how she lived with me. I stayed in my room, their words sliding off me, irrelevant. Madison tried one last move, leaving a voicemail for Kyle, claiming I'd fabricated the entire case, that Aaron never wanted me here, that I was using elder abuse tactics to steal everything. Kyle texted me the message, adding a single line, "She's desperate." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. By Thursday, her car was loaded, her face pale, makeup streaked under her eyes, the weight of her defeat visible. She stood at the door, holding her last bag, her voice soft, almost pleading. "You don't have to do this." I looked at her steady. "Neither did you." She stepped back, expecting drama, a scream, a tear, something to fuel her narrative of me as the villain. But I gave her nothing, just stood calm, still watching her process the truth. She'd played every card, burned every lie, and lost. "You have until midnight," I said. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, her voice small for the first time. "Anywhere that isn't here," I replied, closing the door, not out of cruelty but finality. I watched from the window as she stood on the porch, frozen for a full minute, her silhouette stark against the fading light. Then she walked to her car, slammed the trunk, and drove off without looking back. I didn't cry, didn't cheer, didn't feel triumphant, just done, the weight of months lifting at last. But on the coffee table, I found a silver flash drive, unlabeled, left like bait in the quiet of the house. My stomach turned. Madison didn't leave things by accident, not after everything she'd done. Every move calculated, every gesture dressed in fake sincerity. I stared at it, debating whether to toss it, to ignore it, to let her final play go unanswered. But I'd come too far to leave a loose thread. I plugged it into Erin's old laptop, the one she'd always avoided, claiming it smelled of dust and grief. The screen lit up, revealing a single folder. Open Me. Inside was a video, grainy at first, then clear as the camera steadied. Madison sat in Erin's office, in the chair I'd used that morning to check my email, her face calm, smug, staring into the webcam. "If you're watching this, I'm either gone or you think you've won," she said, her voice steady, a smirk playing at her lips. "I did what I had to do, Ellen. Maybe I crossed a line, but you were never supposed to stay here forever. You were a placeholder, a guest who overstayed her welcome." She leaned forward, her eyes hard, her voice lowering. "Aaron wanted to ask you to leave before he died. He just didn't have the guts to say it." I paused the video, my jaw tight, my heart racing. Even now she was trying to plant doubt, to dig at the one thing she could never touch, my bond with my son. But I hit play, letting her words spill out. "I told him we could build something if we had space, if he could let go of the past. But he was weak, Ellen. He couldn't cut the cord, so I had to do it for him." She smiled, a cruel twist of her lips, as if isolating him from me was an act of love, not control. "You can keep the house," she said, "but you'll never forget this." The screen went black, and I sat in the silence, not angry, not even surprised. Madison always needed the last word, always needed to twist the knife. But she didn't know about Aaron's letter, the handwritten truth she could never fake or overwrite, the one where he apologized, where he told me to fight, to hold on to what was ours. I pulled it from my drawer, held it beside the frozen image of her face on the screen, and felt nothing but peace. I ejected the flash drive, tossed it into the trash, and deleted the file from the laptop, not out of fear, but because I didn't need her lies anymore. The war was over, the house was quiet, and every room was mine again. That evening, I unpacked my things from the boxes she'd labeled for removal, my hands steady as I placed Aaron's photo back on the entryway shelf, its frame catching the soft light.